Did you click this video because you want to be there for every moment of your kids' lives? You want to pull your kids out of public school and educate them at home. You just want to be more available to your kids. You want a job that works around your life and not the other way around. Whatever the reason, I have great news for you. As a mom of 7+ years who is literally the entire time, 100% of the time I've been a mom, I have worked from home, earning an income in various different ways. I am the resource that I wish I had many, many years ago when I was desperately searching for a way to make money from home because I didn't want to leave my little baby who we went through infertility for, who I just couldn't stand the thought of somebody else taking care of her. So that is what I'm all about, and I'm going to be sharing 5 different jobs I have done from home that I've actually tried that you could try right now. Now this is gonna be a very detailed video because I don't just want this to be an inspirational video. I actually want you to have resources, to know the pros, to know the cons, to know what it actually will be like. So I will have chapters in the description so you can jump ahead. And I even wore my mom boss shirt to be fitting for this video. So the very first job I'm going to talk about is a childcare provider. If you're new to my channel, you can go back in the archives and find tons and tons and tons of daycare / childcare in-home videos. I've done day in the life, I've done tons of advice videos, so if you want a good place to start, definitely stay on my channel. I've switched gears now, but it is something I did for 5 years. Now, the cost to get started for a daycare, if you're already a mom, I'm guessing the cost will be pretty low because you probably already have toys, you have diapering types of things, you have outdoor equipment, stuff like that. So it really just varies. You don't need a lot to start a daycare. You can definitely accumulate things over time, but you will need things like pack and plays or cribs, strollers, baby carriers, you know, places to put a baby, not a ton, but 1 or 2, toys, educational activities, craft supplies, cooking stuff if you're cooking meals, you know, basic things that a mom would have, but just extra because you're gonna have more than just your own kids. And then of course, depending on where you live, licensing fees, any classes you have to take, you might buy some books to learn more, and just some like office supplies types of things as well. For us personally, it did not cost a lot of money because we bought a ton secondhand. I got a lot of secondhand toys. We, you know, used what we already had for our own child at the time. And then as far as time per week, now most childcare providers I know work about 50 hours a week in the home. But that does not include, you know, classes they go to after hours, cleaning, tax paperwork, record keeping, all of those things add on to that. But you are in the home, so you're also doing home types of things at the same time to some degree. So 50 hours a week that you're actually caring for kids, but you know, it's not like a typical job where you're outside of the home during that time. You're also doing some things for your family during that time. And there are obviously other types of daycares you could do that would have different amounts of hours. You could do before and after school care. You could do summer only. You could do just 3 days a week, just 2 days a week, just 4 days a week. You could do weekend and night care, school year only. There's so many different ways you could do it to fit whatever your family needs, as long as there's a need in your community. So what are the pros of daycare? Now I have whole videos on the pros and cons of daycare. I will link below, but just for the sake of this video, some of the pros are obviously you are with your kids, which is wonderful. You're at home, which is wonderful. You can do homemaking things during the day, the dishes, the laundry, some cleaning, making appointments, you know, things like that. You usually have that nap time as long as you really work to get the kids on the same schedule, which I highly encourage you do because you'll get burnt out very quickly if you don't. And you usually have an hour or 2 in there to work on daycare stuff, but also relax or do whatever you need to do for your family, make appointments and things like that. Another great pro is that you can get really close with the families in your community and make friends. This was great for us because we were new to the community when I opened my daycare, and it really helped us settle in and make a lot of friends right away. You can choose the families you want to work with, so if a family just doesn't jive well with you or they have different needs, you don't have to take them on. You can be outside during the summer months, which is so nice. I know for us in Minnesota, the summer was always my favorite as a daycare provider. We were outside all the time, enjoying the outdoors. The kids get super tired, take a great nap. We can open all the windows and it's just beautiful. You get to watch children learn and grow, and your kids make friends with the kids in your care. My oldest daughter is best friends still with a child that I took when they were both 2, and 5+ years later, they're still best friends, and it's the sweetest thing, and she feels like a daughter to me. It can be a very good, stable income. You can make a decent income with daycare, and there's a ton of things to write off, which can be a pro or con. If you're going to buy a house or something, obviously it doesn't look as good if your income is lower, but for tax purposes, you write off so much stuff legally because you're buying things for your home, you're buying the toys and things like that. As long as the daycare kids are playing with them at least once, you can write it off, which is really great for tax purposes if you're running a business. Some of the cons. Now, daycare has a ton of pros, but it also has a lot of cons that go with it, just like any job for the most part. It can be very hard on your house. It can be very hard on your body. It can be very hard mentally, you know, just dealing with crying and fighting and your kids, you know, having problems with other kids and just all of that kind of stuff. Working with many little kids can be very taxing on anyone, mentally and physically. It's very long days and it can be very tiring, especially when you first start. There may not be a lot of you left at the end of the day or the end of the week, but I think, you know, over time it does get better. Illness. Your immune systems do get strong, but sometimes you get taken out again and again and again and again with illness because you have all these different kids full of germs coming into your house. Dealing with parents can be really hard. Some are amazing and will just bend over backwards for you, appreciate you so much, but then there are some that don't want to pay you on time, want to change your rules, don't like the way you're doing things, and want their kids on a totally different schedule. That can be really, really hard when you're dealing with many, many different families and you're at your house. It adds a whole different element of frustration, I guess, just dealing with all of these issues in your own home, which is also your business, but it's still your home. Sometimes your kids do not get along with the other kids, which can be very, very hard, or sometimes your kids just plain old don't like daycare. I know for my oldest, that was very, very hard for her. She's very introverted. It was very hard for her to have all these kids in her home every day. It can be very isolating if you don't have a way to travel. I know some people do have like a big 15-passenger van and they go on field trips and things, but we never had that. So literally we're at home or we walk to the park, but that's basically it. And that can be really hard, especially in the colder months when you don't get outside as much. It can be very hard to go to appointments. It's not like a normal job where you can say, you know, I'm gonna be gone during these hours and you take PTO or whatever. You have all these families depending on you. You can't just leave for a couple hours and come back. Now, we in our area did have a couple substitutes who were licensed who could come in. We did have to pay them though, so it's out of our own pocket. But it was a nice resource for being able to go, you know, spend the day with my kids volunteering in their school when they were in school or going to appointments, things like that. Your income can quickly take a hit without you being able to plan for it. So a family can come up to you one day, and if you have a 2-week policy, they may say in 2 weeks we're done, and bam, if they had 2 or 3 kids in your care, your income goes down significantly with very little time to find another child. So that can be really hard. I don't think it happens a lot, but you definitely want to plan ahead for those kinds of things. And with daycare, if you're in your home, your income can only grow so high. You can only charge so much before you outcharge what everyone else in your area is doing, and you can only take so many kids at a time. So it's not like other businesses where your income can just keep going and you can keep scaling. If you're in your home, you're kind of capped at a certain limit. The licensing rules can put a lot of stress on your family, especially husbands if they forget to put something away. It can be a lot of stress on your marriage sometimes, especially as you're getting used to it, because there are a lot of rules in certain states, like Minnesota has a lot of rules. Terminating care with families is very stressful and hard, but necessary sometimes. Next up, let's talk about being a nanny. It is slightly different than being a daycare provider. I was a nanny both before I became a mom for about 3 years, and then after I became a mom for about 1 year. I did it both at someone's house, and then I also had it where I would pick the child up and then bring them to our house once I was a mom, because I was working like 12 hours a day and they didn't have much at their house for kids. And so it's just a wonderful way to be home, but also making some money. So the cost to get started as a nanny in most cases is very low, especially if you're going to the person's house. There's not really anything you should be needing to buy for the most part, except maybe some office supplies, stuff for record keeping, but they should have the toys, the food, the clothes for the kids, you know, diapers, all of that stuff. There really shouldn't be a whole lot that you need to buy or provide. And then time per week is really going to vary for each family. Maybe it'll be a part-time nanny or a full-time nanny. I was a nanny both for about 50 hours a week and then also for like 70 hours a week with my last nanny job, because they were both surgeons and commuting like an hour both ways, and then they also wanted me to come for a couple hours on the weekend, so it was a lot. The pros of being a nanny is that you only have to deal with one family's schedule versus daycare where you're dealing with lots of different schedules. You can get really, really close with that family, which can be just a wonderful thing for your own family, for your children, that kind of thing. And you can usually drive and travel around with the nanny children. You can go to zoos, you can go to parks, you can go do fun things with them, which is really, really nice, so that you're not stuck in the house all day. If it's in their home, then it's not hard on your home, which is very nice. You can keep work at work and home at home. Some of the cons, you are technically your own boss in a lot of ways, but it is more like you're employed because you're only working for that one family, providing a service for that one family in most cases, unless you are part-time at 2 different families. So basically it's less about your schedule and your rules. Like with daycare, you set your own rules and the families, agree to that, sign your contract when they come to your daycare. With nannying, it really depends on how you go about it in your area, but for a lot of families, it's more like they are hiring you, this is what they need, this is what you will do, and you have less say over it. Depending on the situation, you can end up working really long hours like I did. With my last family I nannied for, it just was more and more and more, and that can be really hard to say no because they are your one employer and your one source of income. It can be a lot harder to be a nanny with your own family than it can to be a daycare provider. Most daycare providers have kids, it's just the norm. Nannying, some families really want somebody who doesn't have kids yet. Some families might really want somebody who does have kids. It really just depends, but it's a lot more variable with nannying than it is with daycare. They kind of expect you to have kids if you're a daycare provider. Just like with daycare, it can be hard for appointments, time off, that kind of thing. And also like daycare, your income is pretty much capped at a certain limit, unless you found like a very wealthy family who was gonna pay a lot more. And then I'll also link an article I read that was very inspirational because it was an article interviewing different moms who specifically looked for moms to become a nanny because they wanted somebody who had experience with kids, who had kids of their own, just to give you kind of a sense that not everybody out there just wants somebody like fresh out of college to be a nanny. Some really want somebody who has experience as a mom who already has kids of their own and provide that socialization for their child as well. Next up, photographer. I was a photographer starting in college to right after I became a mom, and I loved it. I really thought that was going to be my career path for many years. After I did it while I was teaching. I was a middle school English teacher, and I quit that because I just knew that wasn't my path, and I thought I was going to be a photographer, so I nannied and did photography at the same time. It was never my full-time job. It never got to that point, but it definitely could have. So I think most of us know what a photographer is. There's tons of different types of photography. I personally did wedding photography as well as like family and child and family session photography. But there is pet photography, there's sports photography, there's nature photography, there's tons of different types of photography you can get into, but I think those are the easiest ones to kind of get into right off the bat and actually make a decent amount of money. So the cost to get started, this is a little higher. Obviously you need the equipment, you need a bag, you need lenses, you need a DSLR. I'm not going to say you need something other than a DSLR because I don't think you would be a good photographer if you're not actually knowing the ins and outs of shooting in manual and things like that. You definitely want to know what you're doing. Lights, flash, tripods, depending on the type of photography, especially wedding photography, there's lots of different things, lots of different lenses you need. A website, business cards, perhaps office supplies, all the things. It definitely is a higher cost to start if you don't have any of those things yet. As far as time per week, it really would vary depending on your schedule and the type of photography. You can be as open and available as you are able to or wanting to, but you can also have very limited scheduling and maybe just do mini sessions once every month or twice a month or something like that, or just do a bunch of sessions in one day, or just do weddings and then you're editing and all that stuff during the week. It's really up to you what you want to do, but there's also like meeting people, emailing, all of that stuff. So you're gonna be still doing a lot at home, but also you need time where you can actually go and do the job without your kid. So some of the pros are that you make the schedule. You get to decide when you're available for sessions or weddings and when you're not. It's also nice that there is a lot of it that's done at home that you can do with your kids around, but there are things that you have to do without your kids in most situations. It can be very, very fun for creative people. You get to meet new people, which is really fun. There's definitely no cap to your income. You can increase prices over time, take on more work if you want. The sky is the limit with photography. You can also do things like sell courses or make presets and things like that that you could sell, as well as you build a following online perhaps. There are lots of different ways to make money as a photographer. And then the great thing about this, because you're only working with people when you're actually taking photos and a lot of it's done at home other hours, this can really open up your schedule for homeschooling or going to appointments, spending time with your kids during normal daytime hours, and you're not like tied to your house or tied to a photography studio all the time. You can really make it flexible and adaptable to your family's schedule. The cons. This one definitely takes a lot of learning. Obviously, you want to be really good at it when you start a business. I spent many years learning photography before I actually started a business, and then I did a photo session for a friend just to do and learned, okay, I think I'm ready to start. And then I really mentored with 2 different photographers, got to know the behind the scenes. I was a second shooter with them and I learned a ton. So it does take some time. If you are new to this, you definitely want to do that before you fully start. I mean, you could start charging, but if you really want to be well established right away, you want to be really good at what you do right away, because there's so many different things that can be thrown at you as a photographer. The reason why I actually stopped doing photography was because my spouse does not have stable hours. So trying to schedule sessions was a complete nightmare because I wasn't going to be taking my kids with me. And so I needed reliable help at home to be able to schedule sessions in advance. And my husband does not have a schedule like that. So that's why I quit, and that can be a major con if you don't have somebody reliable to watch your kids. So you can plan out dates in advance of when you're going to be doing sessions and weddings. And then obviously, especially if you live in a colder climate, if you're doing weddings and like family photos and stuff like that, your income will definitely go down in the colder months, but you can also pick up other things or just spread your income out over 12 months instead of just the months you receive it to make up for that. And then as far as resources, I will put my favorite photography book below that really helped me understand how to shoot a manual. It's called Understanding Exposure, and then a couple other resources as well. Next up is what I'm doing right now, and that is to become a content creator online. Now this can mean many different things. I'm sure if you're online on social media in any way, you know kind of what a content creator is, but it's somebody who puts content online, either through YouTube videos, TikToks, Instagram, posts, Facebook, that kind of thing, and kind of builds a business around it. Maybe they're just getting ad revenue on YouTube, maybe they're doing sponsorships, maybe they're selling their own digital products, cookbooks, whatever it may be, but you're earning an income in various different ways usually, and building a business around your videos, your TikToks, your posts, that kind of thing. So the cost to get started is usually very low. You just need your phone for the most part, and a computer to upload and shoot videos. You don't need a fancy camera to start. It probably does help a little, but it's not something you absolutely have to start. The time per week really varies from person to person. It can be as many hours as you want or as few hours as you want, but depending on the income, you know, different things take different amounts of time. And so it's just gonna really depend on what you have available and what you're actually wanting to do, because this actual job can be a bazillion different things depending on what you want and what you need. The pros of being a content creator is that you can truly grow this over time. That is how I have done it. I actually started this year, I don't know, I think I was teaching when I started my YouTube channel, but I got more serious about it once I had my first daughter. I was doing nannying, and then I started my daycare, and I was running this early in the mornings during nap time, and then, you know, just randomly when I had time on the weekends, which is still how I'm doing it. So it's something you can really fit in wherever it fits. You can still have a full-time job and be a content creator. Plenty of people do that. It's super duper easy to start. Most of us know how to film a video on our phone. You just push a button and it starts recording. You can figure out how to upload it. A lot of people already post on Instagram just for fun. But to become a business owner, you just have to start looking at it a little bit differently, honestly. There's no cap to your income. It truly can scale beyond your wildest imagination over time. And you can launch so many other things from this. I didn't know 7 years ago I was gonna be starting a subscription box, which I have started now as a branch of my business, but there are lots of different revenue sources coming in, which is just really great for security purposes. So you're not just like putting all your eggs in this one basket and then YouTube decides to stop paying people, so then that income goes away. You can really diversify it and work on different products and services to expand your income and your impact on the world. And it can be exhilarating and just so fun to connect with people all over the world and to actually make a difference in some way to people who you'll never actually meet in person usually. But just to know you made an impact is super rewarding. Some cons: it can be really confusing and sometimes take a long time to make an income. I still truly have not fully matched what I was making as a daycare provider, but we are doing okay, and you know, it keeps growing every month, which is wonderful, and I'm just finding different ways to diversify and add more value to people's lives. It also takes way more time than you would ever think to actually do a good job. If people only knew the amount of hours you spend editing, planning videos, writing out scripts, making thumbnails, working with brands, emailing, purchasing things for videos, you know, reshooting things, it can take a lot of time that people never fully understand or see. And it's very easy with this job for it to take over other parts of your life, to let it interfere with what your kid, you know, when you're with your kids, your phone is ringing and you're trying to deal with them, but you've got all this business stuff literally in your hand because that's where you do your work. And so it can be hard at times to shut it off. If you don't like putting yourself out there, that would definitely be a con. I'm very introverted, but I just love sharing and helping others. So this is a wonderful way for me to do that because I don't have to speak in front of thousands of people in a room. I can just speak to thousands of people, but I'm actually just talking to a camera. So it allows me to get my message out there in a less scary way than it normally would be for me, and to really show who I am in an authentic way, which I couldn't do if I was standing on a stage because it terrifies me. So, you know, if you are really not wanting to put yourself out there, you're more private, then maybe this wouldn't be the right fit for you. I definitely recommend, if you're going to be starting on YouTube, to read the book The YouTube Formula by Daryl Eves. I just read it this year and I wish I had read it years ago, but it has been just so helpful for me to fully understand YouTube, but I'll put some other resources in the description. Okay, lastly, we are going to talk about becoming a subscription box owner, which is something I launched at the beginning of 2022 this year and have been doing for about 5 months, but I planned a lot of last year to do as well. So if you don't know what a subscription box is, basically it is a physical box full of physical products that are sent to a subscriber's home every month, every quarter, every year, depending on what the subscription model is that that particular box follows. And usually there's a certain topic or theme that the whole box follows, and then usually each box has its own specific theme. So my particular box is a box for busy working moms to create balance that sticks. So every single month we focus on a different area of life. There's products in there to help with that area of life, and then there's a pampering product and a parenting product as well to help the mom pamper herself and to bond with her whole family. And then I also have an online community that goes along with it. So I have actual physical products that I send out every single month around a certain theme. The cost to get started is 100% the highest of any of the different ones I've shared on here, because you're actually buying the boxes, the physical products, the website, the branding, the box design, office supplies. There is so much to pay for, but you also can make a lot of money really fast with this model. So it's kind of goes both ways. The time per week, you definitely can do this part-time depending on, you know, what you have available, how much you can get done in a certain amount of time. I'm doing this in addition to my business I already run, and I also am homeschooling my kids and with my kids full-time. So this is in conjunction with that. So it's definitely a more part-time job for me right now. The pros of this, you can definitely work this around your schedule, and it truly is a work from home job. You may have like a warehouse eventually that you have stuff sent to, but you don't usually have to go there. It's something you can do from home, at least for a long time, until you get big enough that you have to outsource that or buy your own warehouse or do something like that. This can be super fun to connect with people all over the world, to actually help them physically send something to them that they open up. It is so fun, and just to receive those messages that what you're doing helped them in some way is the best ever. Another pro is that people actually see this as a legit business. All of the other businesses I talked about besides photography, people kind of have a misconception around. Daycare, nannying, people are like, oh, you stay home and you just watch kids. Like, they don't always see it as an actual legit business, which it definitely is. Same with content creation, people kind of look down upon that as well. But with a subscription box, when you actually have a physical thing you send out to people, people can conceptualize that and understand like how it kind of works, and they're seeing you as a legit business. There are definitely no limits to your income. You can just scale this thing and maybe even eventually sell it for a lot of money, which is really cool. And it definitely is a more consistent income when it comes to physical products, because you have subscribers, and for the most part, most of them stay subscribed every month, so you can kind of project what your income will be over time. Some of the cons: it is very expensive to start. You definitely have to have some money to start this business, or have a good plan to get people to pay up front, which is what I did, because I already had an audience. So depending on how you start, you may have to put a lot of money out up front. It can be very hard to keep customers. You're gonna have to know a lot about marketing or learn a lot. I'm learning a lot about that, and retention and things like that, to keep people. And I know with everything with gas prices and food shortages on the horizon that everybody's talking about, people aren't maybe buying as much as they were before. They're trying to save more, so that can be kind of hard in the particular financial climate we're in right now. Excess inventory can be really hard. I'm learning a lot about that right now, to try to sell out instead of buy extra, hoping that you'll get more subscribers, and then you don't, and then you have all this excess inventory that you've paid for that you didn't make any money on yet. So there are lots of ways to get rid of that and make some money off of it, or at least break even. But it is definitely a con to this, that you're putting a lot of money out there and not always getting something back in return. And then just dealing with physical products can be seen as a con. It can be confusing, it can be scary. You know, what if your house floods and all that gets wrecked? You're just out all that money if you don't have insurance. You know, physical products can be really hard because you actually have to sell something physical, whereas it's not as passive as like online income, where you make a digital product and it can just be selling all the time and you don't have to do any more work on it. Physical products, you definitely do have to do more work over time. I will put a couple resources that I used when I started my subscription box bootcamp that I took, and also subscription box basics, which is Julie Ball. That's also, both of these are her creation. She also has a podcast that's really, really helpful as well. So I have done all 5 of these jobs for different lengths of time and different amounts of success. But I would say overall I was successful at all of them. It's just they were for different parts of my life at different times and fit different needs. But I would say these are all great jobs for a mom to do, you know, with her kids to some degree, and to make money at home. I can't wait to do more of these videos with different types of work at home mom job ideas. These are the ones I've done, but I will have a lot of others that I have not tried in the future to share with you guys. But I just hope this was really helpful to be more in depth about each job, because I've actually done each of them. I would love to know, if you're watching, are you a mom? Do you work from home? Do you want to work from home? Let me know in the comments. I just really want to help serve you and give you motivation and resources if you already are working from home, but also give you lots of ideas and motivation if you are wanting to work from home. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.